Hello, my name is Matthew, and we're reading the Iliad by Homer, the Robert Fitzgerald translation. And this week we're reading the final books 19 to 24. This is part of my read along with Steve Donahue. And this is the conclusion of the great epic. We now have Achilles getting ready for battle. He's full of all of that wrath and rage, all upset because Hector has killed his friend Patroclus, disgraced his body. He stole Achilles' armor. He wants to have Patroclus's body dragged back to Troy and be eaten by dogs. This message gets back to Achilles. He goes through the roof. His mother, who's a god, comes down, offers him shiny new armor made by the god of blacksmithing. And so, chapters 19 to 24, we're going to finally see Achilles on the battlefield. And it actually begins with the Greeks regrouping, and Achilles, full of blind rage and wanting to just run screaming into the Trojan army, and the Greeks saying, we need to take a moment, we need a breather, our men need to replenish, eat and drink. Achilles doesn't want any of it. He says, let's just go off, we're going to slaughter them, and afterwards we'll have time to eat and drink. And finally he relents a little bit to take a break, and then we get to finally see Achilles on the battlefield. And he's a wrecking ball. We've seen all of these great heroic figures having larger than life battles, all being watched down by the gods, and also the gods on the battlefield. And with all of that, we still have this magnificent, larger than life, great warrior slaughtering people. It's a massacre. The lists, the obituary column, the lists of people that are just being taken down by his sword and spear is grotesque. He's running along this river, just having a massacre. He's throwing so many bodies, dead bodies in the river. The river, which is like a god, fights back because the river is upset that he's clogging up Achilles with all of the fallen men that are dropping by his sword. Is filling the river with corpses and blood, and the river pushes back and says, why don't you go fight on the plain? And the river starts fighting Achilles, and then the gods come down, and we have gods on both sides. Achilles is slaughtering people. The gods are fighting. It's a fiasco. It's just a full-blown mayhem on the battlefield. It's a spectacle. And this is all leading up to Hector and Achilles. Achilles has a few, he has a series of moments where he'll take a break with the mindless slaughtering to have moments with different Trojan figures. Aeneas is one of them. Aeneas wants to go toe-to-toe with Achilles. He kind of gets swept up by a god because he's going to have another story for him. He has his own adventure that he needs to go on. We have other Trojan figures begging at the feet of Achilles. It's unsympathetic, pitiless, just sometimes just murdering unarmed men begging at his feet. But this is blind rage just bursting out of Achilles. And this leads up to Achilles and Hector. And they have their battle. They go toe to toe. And Achilles fairly swiftly kills Hector. His last dying breaths, Hector pleads, he asks Achilles not to disgrace his body. Don't feed him to the dogs. And I don't think anybody should be killed and fed to the dogs, but Hector just did this the day before. He just killed his friend and wanted to feed his body to the dogs at Troy to make a point. A day later, he's now saying, please don't do that to me. It's a part of just the complicated figures in this story and varying ironies. You'll see situations and scenarios kind of repeated through different lenses. Achilles kills him. He takes his body, drags him back to his campsite. They have funeral games. Achilles is weeping. He'll get up, hook up his horses to the chariot, and just drag Hector's dead body around the pyre of Patroclus, go back into his hut and cry again. Unconsoled, all of this rage, the wrath, burst out of him, but didn't fill whatever hole he had inside of him. It wasn't the right thing to do. He's not doing the right thing. It's justified to be angry. It's not justified to act on your anger. The gods are talking down. They're talking with one another. Priam, who is Hector's father, is given a message that he can go to Achilles, go into his tent, bring him gifts, talk with Achilles. And he's led, Priam, who's kind of this old figure, is led by a driver who's an older figure. We find that he's being led by a god, because there's no way Priam would have gotten through the soldiers' camps alive unless he was led by a god. And we have Priam, who's the king of Troy. For this whole war, he's been at the top, not actively engulfed, but involved, but trying to save his city, save his people, and save his family from these invaders. This resulted in his son being murdered, killed on the battlefield, taken, and being disgraced. And Priam just asks for his son back. It's an emotional part of the book, and it's surprising. It's surprising to think of, like, what story are we reading? Is Hector the tragic figure? If this was from the perspective of the Trojans, or Hector, is this the story of a man defending his city and going crazed with bloodlust on the battlefield and overstepping his bounds and finally being taken down for the very virtues that got him where he was? The story is about Achilles, the rage, the wrath of Achilles, and it ends with Achilles succeeding with what he set out to do. And he's crying at a tent with the father of the man that he slayed. He relents and he gives him Hector's body back. They talk of terms, peace terms. Priam, King Priam says we'll need, I think it was 11 or 12 days to have proper funeral rites. Achilles agrees. He says, I'll hold off uh, the war until he's properly buried. The book ends with Hector's funeral. The funeral of, as a Greek epic, it ends with the funeral, like a sympathetic, emotional conclusion of Hector. The war isn't over. Hector largely symbolizes the first drop that the Trojans are going to be defeated. This wasn't a story where it ends with the Trojan horse being pulled into the walls of Troy and the ransacking and any of that. It's not in the book. It just ends with the loss. The fall of Troy, and also this rampage that Achilles went on. The conceit is that he's going to die young. So Achilles could have had a long, peaceful life if he made different decisions. Instead, he chose this. I don't know if it's a tragedy. It doesn't have. It's a grand epic, but it has a very strange ending. We know what's coming, but it doesn't end with glory. That's what I'll say. It was a wonderful read along. I really enjoyed reading this and reading it with Steve again. I'll look forward to hearing Steve's thoughts on the end of the concluding books that we read this week. So let me know what you thought. I think that the book, the poem, accelerates. Hard to put down. So thank you for watching. Leave a comment if you would like, and take care.